Now, it's Sunday Papers time. It's my favorite part of a Sunday, but normally in bed with a cup of coffee. But that's okay. My guests this morning are ENCA journalist Trina Mvana, who's lovely to have you in the studio and not just running around doing all of the work behind the scenes. And UK correspondent Natalie Powell is with us as well. Before we chat, I'm going to run through those lead stories on the front pages of the Sunday Papers so that we just know where we're at. We'll start with the Sunday Times. On the front page of the Sunday Times, the headline reads, Spy Fund splashes 10 million rand on Minister's mansion, and the picture of the Minister's mansion there, and that is the front page. Another interesting story on the front page, the headline reads, Minister threatens to sue MPs in weather storm, a story involving Environmental Affairs Minister Edna Molewa. Let's move on to the City Press. Big headline there. Security bosses reveal how Cyril dodged a coup. And that's a kind of front page splash that will get a lot of people interested to find out more. Military intelligence picked up that soldiers loyal to former President Jacob Zuma were on the brink of mutiny. Ramaphosa was warned to resolve the standoff with Zuma. That's the sub-headline there. On to the Sunday Independent. Quite a few interesting stories there above the headline as well. But their main front page splash reads, a VBS boss breaks silence. And that's to do with that ongoing saga around the bank, this time with more information from its boss and what he knew or did not know. Also on the front page of the Sunday Independent, China, SA's strong ties serve as a model. And that's to do with the BRICS summit coming up this coming week. And then the Sunday Sun. Ben 10 angers Sumizi. I wonder if we've ever counted how many headlines in the Sunday Sun involves the name Sumizi. That would be an interesting statistic. Star fuming over his fiance's other man, and that's on page 2. And the beautiful lady on the front page is TV personality and brand strategist Kay Naomi. Looking fly at the Durban July is what that headline says. So those are the stories making headlines on our major newspapers, Sunday papers in South Africa. Trina and Natalie is here to dissect some of those stories. And I think let's start with Trina, you've got the City Press there. And that's to do with the story that I think is a nice Sunday splash. Anything to do with a coup, I think will get people to take a closer look. Some more information around those days leading up to President Jacob Zuma resigning. What is the information they have there?
Well, apparently there's a military intelligence that picked up that soldiers loyal to the president were on the brink of mutiny. And Ramaphosa has been warned to resolve the standoff with Jacob Zuma, with the former president Jacob Zuma. As we know, I mean, there's always been this thing between the former president and the current president, Cyril Ramaphosa. This coup is going to be quite interesting because we are leading up to the elections, and 2 provinces recently had their NECs this weekend. And it's all in the name of unity, and obviously leading up to the 2019 elections. So when we see stuff like this happening once again, it once again makes you sort of question yourself what exactly is happening in this party.
And I suppose, I mean, we were all sitting on the edge of our seats when around those days leading up to President Zuma resigning. Will he, won't he, was the ongoing question. People just also want to know what really happened behind the scenes, Natalie.
That's it. I think we all knew that something was happening behind the scenes.
Obviously.
And now, months and months later, certain things are now starting to come out about this, and certain negotiations that obviously took place behind the scenes to try and stop essentially a riot on the hands of the security forces and the now president taking place. So quite a substantial revelation, of course, in this newspaper.
It is quite a revelation, and it's also got the Umkhonto weSizwe people involved, and we know that the spokesperson of Umkhonto weSizwe is a very, very strong Zuma ally, which is called Niehaus. So how this is going to work out, I don't know, but one thing we don't need is a civil war.
And if you put that into context, I mean, just a few weeks before President Zuma resigned, we had the not a coup, happening in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Because they refused to call it a coup, but the military were very much involved there, more front and center than what sounds like was almost a behind-the-scenes situation here. So it's quite interesting to compare those two situations and how it played out eventually.
It certainly sounds like we can breathe a sigh of relief that Zuma actually resigned, as opposed to it getting much more severe than that.
Yeah.
Indeed. That article did go on to say that it's not out of the woods yet, and that depending on how President Ramaphosa plays his hand over the coming months, you know, we might see more movements in those security forces. So that's,
but I mean,
it's
that's
a little bit concerning.
It's very concerning. I mean, every time you see the military involved in a nation, you know that there's a lot of trouble brewing out there. So if government can't resolve issues on their own and they have to call on the coup, then you know that something deep is really happening. So we don't need any bloodshed or anything like that. But it's going to be quite interesting.
And another story there, if we can just move on very quickly, you've got the pictures there on the front page of the City Press. It really tells the story of those two major ANC provincial conferences that took place. We've got the one with Sishle having a laugh with Cyril Ramaphosa, and at the bottom we've got the new leaders of the Gauteng ANC conference.
Very interesting. These two conferences are two big strongholds for the ANC, especially KwaZulu-Natal, because there's a lot of support from KwaZulu-Natal for the ANC, and they were very active in the conference in Nasrec last year. So we've had disruptions from both these conferences almost not taking place this weekend, and the KZN one had been postponed. So it happening this time, it almost did not happen because apparently some members from the ANC were trying to stop this conference from going ahead this weekend. But thankfully it went ahead. A new leadership was elected.
And I'm sure there'll be a bit of a sense of relief from the national body, in that at least in those two provinces they can now set the clock and start counting down to the elections next year.
Most definitely. And another thing is, hopefully we will see a decrease in the political murders in KwaZulu-Natal, because all these political murders in KwaZulu-Natal have been because of leadership. People don't want to lose positions. Everybody is fighting for their piece of bread. So if I lose my position, I don't have enough skills, because that's what the Morani Commission discovered, that some of these councillors, they don't have any other skills. So if this person is no longer a councillor or a leader, one of the leaders in the ANC, they completely lose it. So what then? Next best thing, assassinate the person who's competition to you.
So that's why, and it's terrible that it's almost just become part and parcel of the conversation that we have when it comes to politics, especially in that part of the world.
It kind of reminds you of the early 90s and the violence that took place in KwaZulu-Natal, the bloodshed. But yeah, we will see. We are watching. We tracking that one as well.
Let's move on to the Sunday Independent. Natalie, you've got that there, and it's the latest in that ongoing saga around the VBS bank. What is the VBS boss saying now?
That's right. Well, this is the first time that the chief executive of VBS has actually broken his silence to the Independent on Sunday, of course, and in it he's essentially claiming his innocence. Now he is accused of basically raiding depositors' money to purchase things like mansions, sports cars, and even a helicopter, it says in here, which is quite substantial indeed. But he is actually claiming that the state, and of course this all goes to court on Tuesday, that in nowhere of these court proceedings has the state said that that he defrauded the bank or had any instruction to defraud the bank. So he's trying to really claim his innocence on this, but of course much more will be revealed in those court proceedings on Tuesday, I imagine.
I mean, one finds it difficult if you look at the amount of money that they're talking about, that a boss would not know that those amounts of money were traveling in and out of the organization.
It's absolutely
it boggles
crazy.
the mind, you know?
It's absolutely crazy. And I mean, the worst thing about this VBS saga is that it makes black business look bad. Like black business is unreliable, because VBS was a solely black-owned business. So a lot of these people were suffering. People trying to withdraw their money. It was sad. We were covering stories on that.
The pictures of the type of people who were lining up for their money, and you contrast that with all of the details of the lavish things, the helicopters, the cars, and it's
exactly
pathetic.
But my thing at the same time is that we've been hearing a lot about the royal household, that apparently about 12 million rands was used on spoiling the Venda king, which we have not had word from the Venda royal household.
Oh, have they been silent?
I would absolutely love to hear from the Venda royal household what has been happening. Is this true? Has your king been splurged? What do they have to say for themselves? Because as the media, we're saying that these gifts, they've been lavished with these gifts. That's the information we're getting. But what is the royal household actually saying? And when it's people suffering like this, the queues, people waking up early in the morning, people unable to draw, it was a horrible experience.
It's extremely
really
heartbreaking. People's hard-earned money. Now, let's stay with the Sunday Independent. Natalie, you found a nice story inside the Sunday Independent, dolled up and going places.
That's right. Well, this is all about South African entrepreneurs finding really a big gap in the market. And what's particularly interesting about this is that this lady has, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, the Sibahle dolls, which I'm told means beautiful dolls.
Yes. That's lovely.
She has invented these dolls because her 2-year-old daughter came home one day asking to have long, straight hair.
Because that's what all the dolls have.
That's what all the dolls have, exactly. And
I hope we have a picture. We were supposed to take a photo of that picture so that people can see what these beautiful dolls look like. So I hope we can put that up. So what is she saying there?
Basically, that inspired her to then invent these dolls so that little girls would have dolls that look a lot more like them. And this is particularly important when it comes to the hairstyling as well. And what's lovely about these dolls is the fact that they have this wonderful afro hair that's able to be plaited and used by these. And I think this is something that a lot of entrepreneurs are now kind of getting into that marketplace. I recently interviewed somebody back in London who's putting together children's books on this so that little girls have books where they're able to see characters that look like themselves. And I think this is so important for our children to learn that there isn't just one
kind of beauty.
Exactly. And that,
I mean, it's that age-old thing we keep hearing more and more, representation matters. And also when it comes to doll manufacturers, books being made, it also makes for good business.
It does.
Because if people, children, your market see themselves reflected in your product, they'll buy more of it.
Exactly.
You know, because it's one thing telling your little girl that you are absolutely gorgeous with your hair and with your skin, but when they keep seeing on television the straight hair, flaunts it.
Absolutely.
The straight silky hair.
Absolutely. You know, when you're little, when you're a child, you do want to conform. You do want to be just like everybody else. And by having images out there that are much more diverse, then it will encourage those children to realise there isn't a normal.
And those dolls are absolutely gorgeous.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Let's hope it catches on. We had so much more to talk about, as usual, but we've run out of time, unfortunately. Ladies, Nina, Natalie, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Thanks for coming to chat about the Sunday papers. People want to find out more, they'll just have to go and fetch the papers themselves.